Like they call it the doghouse.
Okay, so the other day we had UFC 304 with Bilal Muhammad taking on Leon Edwards for the welterweight title, and to a lot of people's surprise, Bilal Muhammad absolutely dominated Leon Edwards and captured the welterweight title, and to an extent also kind of got revenge for that first fight, where even though Bilal technically didn't lose, it felt like he kind of lost because he got dominated by Leon in the first round, and then obviously got the eye poke, but to a lot of people it was sort of going in one direction. But Bilal now has completely written that out, and I think now people may not like him, but he's definitely, I think, earned the respect of a lot of people. I'll be honest, I thought that Leon would win, but I gotta give respect to Bilal Muhammad. He has done his thing, and I don't think there's much really with Bilal that surprised me in the fight, other than the fact that his hands definitely look a little bit quicker. He did something to Leon which Usman and Covington couldn't do, so I give him the respect there. But I want to talk today about Leon Edwards because, as I said, I did think Edwards would win the fight, and I felt as if just because of how the first fight went and because of how Leon's striking is and because it being in the UK, I felt like he would be enough there for him to get it done. The only thing I did think about this fight, first of all, I think it felt like everybody was dismissing Bilal, including Leon. Leon himself said, he's not Khabib, he's not GSP, he's Bilal, his hands aren't great, he's slow, he's not this or that. It felt to me like he was dismissing Bilal's skills a lot, and while some of that may just be showmanship and him just talking for the sake of it and trying to build the fight, to me, I don't know, Leon just doesn't really feel like that type of guy. It feels like what he says he really does mean, and I felt he was quite dismissive of Bilal. And the one thing about Leon, which is what kind of got me thinking, first of all, whenever everybody's always in one opinion that one guy's going to win the fight, usually it goes the other way. Everybody was so sure that Piotr Jan was going to beat Sean O'Malley, and Sean O'Malley got the victory. Everybody thought Woodley would beat Kamaru Usman, and Usman got the victory. It's usually the way of things in MMA because, the sport is very unpredictable. And with Bilal, I did sort of have that thing in the back of my head thinking that, it does seem a bit like everybody's dismissing Bilal, which to me could potentially see him take the win. And the other thing about Leon, which I also thought, this is something where I think is a big issue with Leon Edwards, is that to me, Bilal was always going to come forward and try and take the bet off him. He was very motivated to do that, especially against Leon, who dismissed him for years. And the thing with Leon, which I think is an issue, he has moments in fights. We saw this in the Kamaru Usman fight. We saw this in the Nate Diaz fight. He has moments where it feels like he's almost on autopilot the whole time, and he almost switches off a lot in fights. And in the Kamaru Usman 2 fight we saw this, and I know he was tired in the second fight, and I know he obviously did pull out the victory, but to me, I don't know, I looked at that fight and I kind of felt as if Edwards, he just looked so sluggish and just all laboured in there. And it looked the same here. Leon has these moments in fights where he just sort of cruises through and he doesn't really look to get the finish. He almost just prefers to just stay at his range and not do much. And I don't think it's necessarily... I know people complain about Israel Adesanya doing the same thing, but the difference with Adesanya, if a guy comes forward and does actually really try to stick it on him, there's a good chance he can hurt you and will hurt you. Look at Alex Pereira. In those 2 fights, Adesanya hurt him in the first fight, in the MMA fight I'm talking here. He hurt him in the first round of the first fight, and in the second fight, he knocked him out. If somebody brings the fight to Adesanya, that is what happens. With Leon, it's not really the case because Bilal brought the fight to him and he just did nothing. I know Sean Strickland was able to beat Adesanya, but I think that was just purely because of the stylistic matchup of Strickland and the way his boxing is. It made it hard for it really Izzy to establish any kind of control. But with Leon, it's like he's almost happy and he's always sort of content with cruising to a decision. And the one thing that got him a lot of criticism was the Colby Covington fight, where he won the fight with these. Obviously, Colby got a lot more stick, but considering what Colby said about Leon's dad, a lot of people felt like Leon should be a bit more aggressive, trying to finish Colby, trying to punish him for what he said. But to me, again, he did what he had to do, but that's just what Leon is. He isn't somebody who presses the action. You know, I look at Kamaru Usman in that 5th round of the first Colby Covington fight. When he saw that he got a rattle out of Colby in that 5th round, he really, and I mean really, pressed the action and tried to get him out of there. And as DC said on commentary at that time, it's what you want to see from a champion in round number 5. It's Usman had that thing of he would just come after you and would try and actively finish guys. With Leon, it's not the case. He doesn't try and do that. He does. It's as if he always is sort of happy being on the periphery of fights and never fully commits to trying to knock his opponent out. And I feel like he actually could do it. Leon does have power in his hands. It's not as if he can't. He doesn't hit hard. He has powerful kicks. I think Leon could finish these guys if he wanted to, but for whatever reason, like, it's his instinct to be a bit more laid back and staying on the outside, and I don't think he does enough in fights, to be honest, to really warrant that respect of his opponents. And I think that's why Belal knew all he had to do was push Leon back, and Leon wouldn't be able to do anything. Leon was consistently backing up in this fight, and he got hurt in the first round with the uppercut from Belal. And once he got hit with that uppercut, it felt like he almost went into his shell a little bit. And the same thing happened in the second Usman fight, where Leon just sort of switches off. Like I said, he goes into like cruise control, where he doesn't actually press the fight, doesn't actually try to actively fight his opponents. He just sort of shells up, tries to outpoint them, jab, leg kick, land a few kicks here and there. Maybe might try mixing a few takedowns. It's always been Leon's approach to any fight. That's why you look at a lot of his finishes. They haven't really come. You know, in his title, not title run, but his reign or run towards the title, he didn't get a lot of finishes in those ones. You know, Nate Diaz, don't get me wrong, I won't criticize him for that because not many people do finish Nate at all. But if I look at, you know, the Cerrone fight, the Gunnar Nelson fight, it just felt like there's always a lack of urgency. The RDA fight is another one. He doesn't really try and get his opponent out of there, and it's not as if he's completely dominant like how Khabib would do to people. He's, like I said, I don't know, it just feels like he's sometimes doesn't have that urgency that you'd want, and that's why I think you see his coaches are always having to try and charge him up in fights, because it feels as if he's almost just relaxing and chilled throughout the fight. But I feel like in MMA, in any combat sport, you need to be switched on, and Leon, to me, has a lot of moments where he switches off, and this is exactly why even though I thought Leon would win, I wasn't completely shocked to see Belal take him down and to win the way that he did do, because I could see Leon before the fight almost having another night like he did with Usman too, and just switching off, not doing much, and eventually just getting dominated. And I didn't think Belal, to me, did anything crazy in the fight. He did what he always does, but to me, Leon, there's just a lack of urgency, and I think if he wants to get his belt back or wants to actually make a name for himself in this division, I feel like he needs to switch it up a little bit. And I think he actually should take a page out of Jorge Masvidal's book. And I know that might sound crazy because of how Masvidal's career went and how it sort of finished with him losing quite a few. But the moment Masvidal decided that he wanted to stop just trying to survive and actually start putting some meat on his punches and his kicks and trying to actually knock people out, he became a star and he became very, very rich off it. I think Leon would benefit from doing the same sort of thing and almost discovering that killer instinct a bit more, and almost, because you know, think about Belal was not afraid of what was coming back from Leon, and I don't think it was because he didn't respect Leon. I think it was because he was so driven. He didn't care what was coming back. He just wanted to push Leon back, and this is what I feel like Leon doesn't do. Leon sometimes is fearful of what comes back, and because he had moments in this fight, he cut Belal right at the end of the round, or end of the fight, in the 5th round. He can beat Belal Muhammad. He can beat a lot of guys still, but because of the way he fights, it's as if his mentality is, I'm not like in much of a rush and I don't really want to hurt my opponent, really, because it doesn't ever feel like he really sticks it on his opponent to the point where, you know, he can get them out of there. And even that, the Usman head kick, as amazing of a finish as it was essentially set up, I don't want to say out of nothing, because obviously they did plan the head kick, but ultimately it was literally out of the fire. He was getting dominated that whole fight. It wasn't as if it was set up in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. He had known what Usman was doing and ultimately was able to catch him. But ultimately, if Usman decided to just grapple, not engage in the boxing with him, he would have lost the fight to Edwards. I mean, Edwards would have lost the fight to Usman in that second fight, and we wouldn't have had him being champion. And I feel like Edwards as champion, he did sort of go back and forth with some of these guys and didn't really defend his belt as frequently as I think people would have liked. Compared to Usman, who defended his belt all the time. And I feel like with Edwards, he's a very good fighter. Skill-wise, there aren't many better, well-rounded fighters in the whole of the UFC than Leon Edwards, but he has a big issue in that it feels as if he lacks urgency. I'm not going to say he lacks a dog in him, but I feel like it does feel like that at times, though, where it's as if he almost has to have somebody to motivate him and to get him up. He can't do it himself, and that is an issue, because when you can't motivate yourself, they're not always going to be able to drag you out the fire, the coaches. You need to do it yourself. You need to really wake up. You need to, again, when you're fighting these guys, it wouldn't hurt. You've got the skill set to just go out there and just start putting a bit more meat and a bit more something behind these kicks and these punches. Because to me, Leon can knock people out. He literally knocked a man out in 5 seconds, or was it 8 seconds, whatever it was, like back in the day. He has the ability to hurt people, but he, for whatever reason, just decides not to. And I think this is an issue with Leon, because to me, it's the next step for him. He was perfect. He could do everything. He could grapple. He could box. He could, fight at range. What he couldn't do, and this is what I always felt was an issue, was it felt like the next step for him was to develop that killer instinct. And I don't think he's got that killer instinct that a lot of guys have. Look at the whole of the UFC. Look at the champions. I want to look at Tom Aspinall, who's on that same card, has that killer instinct. Kamaru Usman has that killer instinct. So does Israel Adesanya. As much as people want to call him boring, when he is on it and really wants to hurt you, look at the Paulo Costa fight, look at the Alex Pereira fights. He has that instinct, Adesanya. I think Makhachev has that. I think Charles Oliveira has that. I think, if you want to go further down, Max Holloway has that killer instinct. Like, that thing of, when you see a guy hurt, you don't just back off and play it safe. You really try to stick it on them. I know people will say Adesanya was boring, but when he hurts a guy, Adesanya, it's rare that he doesn't try and follow up and get them out there. So, yeah, to me, I think Edwards, like I said, the next step, if he wants to get that belt back, is to me, develop that killer instinct, because otherwise he's going to set a blueprint of how to beat him. It was very similar to how Woodley was at points, where Woodley would just wait, and then it encouraged guys like Usman just to come forward and take him down and dominate him. It was very similar to Usman and Woodley, and to me, it was a poor performance from Leon Edwards, but he can get the belt back. I just think it doesn't need a shift in his skills, it needs a shift in his mentality, and that's something that only he can find within himself. But regardless, it was a fairly, I guess, intriguing fight between him and Bilal, but I feel like Edwards was very lackluster. I think Bilal performed well, and I think he 100% deserved that fight and deserved the belt. He doesn't deserve a rematch, Edwards, because he got dominated and he only defended the belt twice anyway. So to me, I think he has some building to do. I think if he fights like a Shavkat or a Madalena or someone who's just going to give him a bit of a challenge, I think it would help. But yeah, just my thoughts on Leon Edwards. I feel like he's a great fighter, but I just think he needs that shift in mentality, and I feel we may see a different Rocky next time out. But just my thoughts. Just let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, just my opinion on Leon Edwards and his performance against Bilal Muhammad. And yeah, until next time.